consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalyn Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spots that activate your soulgasmic business. Enjoy this light language activation as we begin to magnetize and monetize.
Welcome, my loves. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so honored to have you choose to listen to this show. If you enjoy this episode, please do leave a review, take a screenshot of this podcast, and shout us out on social media so more people can tune in too. On Instagram, it's Bold Sexy Warrior, and on Facebook, it's Rosalyn Fung Coaching Bold Sexy Warrior. It would mean the world to me for you to take a few minutes to share and review this so more people can really expand themselves as well. So my loves, also, if you're feeling called to dive in deeper, I start my 12-week Mastermind Client Attraction Academy tomorrow, May 26th, where I walk you through my signature system. My work with my clients is all about bringing in the alchemy of mindset, soul expansion, and strategy with the energetics of marketing and sacred sales. So to check out the overview or to enroll, go to www.7figureconfidence.com/academy. I have only 2 more spots available. And I have had clients who double, triple, and even quadruple their income from being part of the Client Attraction Academy. So 7figureconfidence.com/academy. I'd love to have you in there if it's aligned. Now on to today's show. I'm so excited about this. I love this topic, the power of synchronicities. Let me ask you, do you ever notice when things seem like a coincidence? Which, by the way, there's no such thing as a coincidence, okay? That's a synchronicity. So we're going to dive in deeper about what synchronicities are, what's the meaning of them, and how does noticing synchronicities support you to level up in your spiritual evolution, in your soul expansion. And so I have my soul sister and special guest here today, Alysha Myronuk, who is the creator of the fun new word of myrony, which obviously rhymes with irony, which are the crazy coincidences that happen in life we can't explain, and it's also another word for sign or synchronicity. Her life was fairly normal until she got into a car accident. And I'm actually going to have her share her story deeper, as I always have my guests do, because, the stories are so powerful. So I'm going to save that for her to share. Now, Alysha and I met in as we were learning our Akashic Records course. And we connected. I love her spirit. She is such a beautiful, full-hearted, strong, spiritual woman. And she's really, really been through such a journey. And she's so grateful for her journey. It's really when we go through the darkest of days, right? And we are moving through what probably feels like we'll never get through. And on the other side, there's always a transformation. So Alysha now shares her new concept of myrony, that's myrony, on her podcast, which ranks top 5% globally of most listened to. You guys have to go check out her podcast. I also have an episode on there with her. It's a really raw and vulnerable one. So that's myrony. And Alysha is also a spiritual coach. She does my myrony mentoring, where she uses her psychic gift of knowing, also known as claircognizance, to help her clients through intuitive soul sessions with her Unlock Your Blocks program, which helps release at a soul level what they need to move forward and create the life they truly desire with a little myrony in their life. So welcome, Alysha. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Rosalyn, and thank you for that introduction. Wow, I mean, I was like, I feel so honored and blessed to know you, and I feel like I was absolute divine myrony that brought us together.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I love your story. I love your heart. I just love your gifts and how you share them. So please do share with us how you got to be who you are today and be doing what you do.
Yeah, it is quite a journey. It's really funny because so many of us don't realize the gifts that we have until much later on in life. And so I realized I had this gift of claircognizance. I have a little bit of mediumship abilities also. But it's really funny because when I was 16 years old, so I grew up in New Jersey, right outside New York City, and I now live in San Jose, California. But something when I was going to schools, looking for universities, something told me to go to Delaware. Now, I'd never been to this state. I only applied to 2 colleges. I went to University of Delaware. I believe in free will, but that was my destiny, was to take this path that was so full of twists and turns. So, I mean, at that age, I literally was guided to go down this. So why I say that is because almost 17 years ago, my father became terminally ill and passed away very quickly. And I was engaged and married in 6 days, where he passed away 1 week later. Now, I have to be the only one in history born, engaged, and married in the same hospital. How does that happen?
Wow.
I will encourage your listeners, if they want to hear the deeper story on this, to check out the first episode on my podcast. That's Myrony. It's Discover Myrony and Your Inner Superpower, where I go much deeper into the story. But basically, I knew my dad had very little time. And my mom even asked, why don't you get married in 2 weeks? I said, we don't have that time. Thank goodness I didn't listen to her, because he literally passed away 1 week to the time that I got married. Now, I did not get married just for my dad. He was the guy I married. He was absolutely one of my good soulmates. So I can't say anything bad about him, because when you hear the other parts of this story, people are like, how did that happen? But I was shown every single sign when I was getting married that this was truly meant to be. For example, I have one, actually, we say 6 days, because the proposal happened on Saturday. There was a day of rest on Sunday, and Monday, we're basically off to the races of trying to pull a wedding together.
Wow. Alysha, are you still there?
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Okay, I think you dropped off. Live radio tech issue.
Okay.
So you were just sharing about your engagements and how it was really everything sort of like happened really quickly, and then it sort of dropped off. So
okay, so the first day, or not the first day, first wedding dress I tried on actually ended up being the dress of my dreams. I had the shoes were the last pair of my size. Like, my whole bridal ensemble was bought in 3 hours with lunch. How does that happen, right? So all these signs kept showing up that entire week that were just unbelievable. And then the biggest sign was on August 21st. Now, here's the biggest myrony. So for the listeners, myrony are the crazy coincidences that happen in life that we can't explain. It's a more modern day word for synchronicity. However, it has its own definition because it's synchronicity in motion. We see that sign and then there's an action we can take, right? So what's the biggest myrony is that where I met my, he ended up turning into my ex-husband, where I ended up meeting him was at this restaurant called 821, okay? This was in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, on August 21st, 821, we were set to get married on August 22nd, but on August 21st, it was torrential downpour, like joking, like just sheets of rain, like joking, like build an ark and start loading up the animals kind of rain. Like seriously, the worst rainstorm you could possibly imagine. And the reception was going to be in the courtyard of this hospital. My dad was in hospice care at this hospital that I was born in. And everybody's like, what are you going to do? And that's when I said, if there truly is a God, he will not take this away from my father. Now, I was a total universe girl. I don't even remember last time I said the word God. I had turned against God because of religion. And, you know, not that there's anything wrong, but I realized later on that I put God in this box that, you know, that was I look at that was my mistake of, you know, putting who God is in this box. But so it was so funny that I even used the word God that day. And because I was like, what, we're going to have the reception in the cafeteria? You know, I was like, that's not going to happen. Well, sure enough, the next day on August 22nd was the most beautiful day I ever witnessed. On the East Coast, it should have been hot and humid at the end of August. There was not a cloud in the sky, not a drop of rain. No humidity. It was literally a California day, happened in New Jersey that one day. I believe I was shown this sign, these divine myronies, because my life was really going to take a turn for absolute insanity in less than a year. So what happened was this restaurant that we met at, I was the general manager and he was the chef. The owner asked if we wanted to buy it. So we were set to buy it on December 1st of 2004, and we ended up closing on December 8th, which is 821 backwards. So maybe this is a little foreshadowing of how backwards my life was going to turn.
Wow.
So it all started. So my brother and his then wife, they became pregnant with twins, which they lost the twins 5.5 months into the pregnancy, which happened on Mother's Day, which was also my brother's birthday. That was such a tragedy that that broke me. In addition to, you know, losing my dad quickly, I was, you know, I was a total daddy's little girl. You know, I was very fortunate. My parents had this beautiful soulmate relationship. So, you know, just so much sadness all around. I also didn't have any of this spiritual awareness at the time of, you know, why these things happen, right? Well, when I didn't think things could get worse, plus I battled fibromyalgia. That was where, you know, after this car accident when I was 17 years old, I developed that at 18. So, you know, dealing with chronic pain, that stress, my body just like was giving out on me. And just when I think things can't get worse, there was a girl that worked for me who she actually lied about having cancer and going through chemotherapy when she had a hernia. I don't know how she did this. Decided she wanted my husband, left hers, and it all started at her son's 1-year birthday party. My life turned into an absolute soap opera at this point. But what was so painful was that I had to see him every single day because I owned this restaurant with him. So I wasn't able to escape it. There were people that knew the story, people that didn't know, you know, not the story. The freaking, I mean, it was the worst thing. I could understand, you know, where celebrities are literally just being, you know, all the rumors and, you know, whether it's true or not. Like, I was the same time as the whole Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston triangle. except mine was
wow.
a little, micro size, except I knew these people public, so I couldn't escape it. And I felt like my life just jumped this track that I was like, what is going on? So I started talking to psychics because I was like, something is not right. Like I just felt it. Like I was like, he was absolutely one of my good soulmates. And I was like, how did this happen? Because I was like, how could he leave me for somebody who could lie about cancer and chemotherapy? Like nothing made sense to me. So but this was my greatest gift, because I ended up actually buying a pendulum. And I discovered I was able to tap into my father's energy with this. And so anybody who wants to hear this deeper story, I gave this interview on the podcast Sense of Soul. And it came out on February 22nd of 2021. So I go much deeper into the story there. But basically what happened was I was able to tap into my dad's energy, and I was being given answers, and that higher awareness was what kind of gave me the strength to keep moving forward. And then my greatest myrony was my friend who took my wedding pictures. The day before she moved away, she gave me the book by Dr. Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters. And that book saved my life. That book gave me the understanding that somehow our higher selves choose everything that happens in life. And that gave me all the power back, because it allowed me to move from a place of, it took me years to move from this place of looking at, being a victim of something as to you chose it all. And that's a really hard thing for, people to understand. But when you gain that awareness, I say it's like flipping on a light switch. You can flip it on or off. It can get flipped off, but you can flip it on just as easily. And so that was my saving grace. My other saving grace was my mom discovered that she had the gift of auto writing. And then I discovered I could auto write. And
I'm going to wow, I want to learn more about what auto writing is. So what we'll do is we'll take a pause, a break. And then when we come back from commercial, let's go deeper into that, because I feel like that's just, that's so powerful. And if we could show people how to do that and start downloading, channeling that, that's amazing.
Sounds wonderful.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Life is a flow, and enlightenment is simply harmonizing with the way life really is. Then you find that life is effortless, benevolent, and free of all suffering. Hey everyone, this is GP Walsh, and I want to invite you to my brand new radio show that's launching right here on OMTimes Radio called The Flow of Enlightenment. I've been a spiritual teacher for decades, and my greatest pleasure is being able to share with you these deep and highly practical spiritual ideas. So join me in The Flow every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern and let yourself be transformed.
My loves, you know you're here as a soul-led leader to transform this world through the sharing of your passions and gifts. You are here to be in your warrior of light and align your business with your highest self. I'm Rosalyn Fung of the show Activate Your Soulgasmic Business. Let's elevate your business to the next expansive level. I invite you to flow into a business soul alignment discovery call with me at rosalynfung.com. That's ROSALYN, fun as in have some fun, FUNG, and let's see how I can best hold space for you to align your highest self, magnetize your dream clients, and monetize on your soul mission. I can't wait to connect.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Do you feel like your emotions are all over the place? That's normal during this abnormal time. There are a number of ways to cope. Maintain a healthy routine, get enough sleep, eat nutritious food, and exercise at least 30 minutes each day. Schedule some time to talk with a friend or family member. And remember, you can always take a few deep breaths to feel more centered.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
All right, welcome back, loves. So, Alysha, I'd love for you to continue sharing about, just review. So, that book that you shared, what I really heard was spiritual accountability, which is one of my most powerful learnings as well. Just the power that when we take spiritual responsibility or accountability, everything shifts for us. And we can take back our power and realize like everything's happening for us. And so you also shared about auto writing. So tell us what that is and how that came about for you and how it serves and supports.
Sure. So it was really interesting because I shared with my mom that I believed I was tapping into my father's energy, and my parents were married almost 43 years when he passed. So they just had this beautiful soulmate love. And there was a question that I would not have known the answer that I was able to answer. And then my mom used to write letters to my dad that like he was a pilot. So she would write letters to him for him to find. So one day she was just writing out her feelings, and then somehow he responded in his handwriting. And my dad had some funky handwriting. And I was like, I remember her showing me this. She actually showed me and my brother, and was like, she's like, I have something to show you guys. And, we were never, like, there were situations of, people in the family talking about clairvoyancy and things like that, but we weren't really part of that world, right? And so when I saw this, I was just like, oh my goodness. And I was like, first, I'm like, how is that happening? And of course, my second question is, can I do that? So she got the answer that yes, but it would take me some time. So it was interesting because, so auto writing for your listeners is basically, you write a question and you get an answer and it's not you. Now for myself, the pen will actually move on its own. It's an energy that flows. So everybody has their own techniques, and, some people could say they're, channeling through writing, but for me, the pen actually will move on its own. And it's very funny because the writing looks like a little kid did it, but
wow. Okay, hold up. I'm trying to picture this. So like, you're still holding the pen though, right? And
I'm
then
holding
it starts
the pen,
to move on its own?
Like, I'm holding the pen, but as lightly as possible. So you feel the energy, and you can watch it, and you will catch it where it will literally move on its own. I mean, I have to hold it very, very lightly, but every now and again, the pen will like literally just kind of jump because it lost the traction of the paper. But yeah, it's kind of amazing. I know.
No, that's not just kind of. That's really amazing, girl. Like, holy crap. And I'm guessing this isn't, like, do you ever try to record this? And I'm sure, like, I know that people try to record things sometimes that are very much when they're with spirit, that spirit won't let them. So I'm just like, I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I just thought maybe I should try to record this, but at some point we'll see if that's something that, this story is coming out more and more and more because it's what the end result, or not end result, but what this bigger mission that I'm being asked to do, which I'll share in just a little bit. But so my saving grace with that, in addition to the book Many Lives, Many Masters, is that I have someone who is we're able to do the same thing. We're asking the same questions. We're getting the same answers. And then one day, my father, and it was primarily my dad's energy. There were some other energies that would come through occasionally. But one day I had this feeling that my dad needed to ask me a question or needed to tell me something. I was like, Dad, what is it that you want to tell me? And this is what changed my life forever, because he said, Alysha, you need to believe in the Holy Family. And I was like, wait, what do you mean I need to believe in the Holy Family? This is when I knew I wasn't making this up, because I was brought up Catholic. Not that there's anything wrong with Catholicism, but I could not just accept one way of looking at things. And he's like, it's like Taoism with the Holy Family. And I was like, what a weird cryptic message is that? So now I'm going down another spiritual rabbit hole of like, what does that mean? You have your deceased father giving a message like that? Like, there's got to be something to it, right? So, and if you start, and then, I realized that the Holy Family is just everyone who's doing God's work. But I realized I had to shift my way of looking at spirituality, of who God is. And that gets a little bit further into my story too. But so I kept going down this interesting path. And then one day I realized that I had this new word of myrony. And how I discovered that was I used to, after I got out of the restaurant business, I started selling high-end cars. I was selling Jaguars at this time. And people would ask, how do you say your last name? So I say it's like ironic with an M. And then I would add, there's a lot of irony in my life. And people would laugh. So one day it hit me. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a universal word for everybody. My+irony. Myrony. It's the opposite of selfie, because it's recognizing something greater than ourselves. So I like to say myrony is we take out the I, because it's not about I, it's about we and something so much greater. Yes. And then we add back the Y, because it's all about the why. And, so I love the fact that everybody has these myronic experiences, just not the way I spell my last name. That's myrony.
That totally is myrony. Totally.
Yeah. And I encourage everyone, this is actually, myrony again has its own definition, because it's synchronicity in motion. So if you see just the synchronicity, but you don't act on it, then it's just a synchronicity. But there's an action when you start feeling those intuitive pulls. There's the story of how you and I connected through Deanne Riendeau's, which we're going to give a big shout out to her.
Yes, we
Rose
are.
Hope International. And
she's our Akashic Records coach. Yeah.
Yes. And I did some really deep Akashic. I did her one-on-one, Akashic mentoring program in addition to the group that we met at. But what's really crazy, Rosalyn, is that my mom passed away in 2011. And so both my parents are on the other side, and they came through during that reading, and they said, you need to do deeper soul work. Now, what's even more interesting is somebody gave me the money that I was able to afford this deeper soul work. And that's how you and I, literally the day before. And that's how I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And what was so amazing was Deanne was able to tap into my spiritual experience that happened now 6 years ago. And I'm going to go a little bit into that. But that was, I just acted. I was in a financial position where I could have been like, oh, I may need this money. But I was like, no, this is too weird. How was I given this money? And now I have the money to do this, personal, mentoring, which, as we know, one-on-one coaching can be expensive. So, it was an investment. But rather than looking from that place of lack, I looked at it from a place of abundance and been like, okay, this has to be what they're talking about. and that's how I ended up being in the course with you, and that's how we're having this conversation now. So that's what I'm talking about for the listeners, is you trust those, you trust those signs, you trust those messages. I see them on license plates all the time. Through songs, I feel that there's different conversations happening, number sequences. You pay attention to it. And usually it's about who you are meant to connect with, because it's about people and not things.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening was, I brought myrony to the world on April 22nd of 2015. Now, the biggest myrony is that I found out after I had shared this with a family member on April 22nd, 2008 was the day I closed my restaurant doors. So what are the odds?
Wow.
And then it gets even more interesting because somehow, and I have no idea how this happened, but on May 10th of 2015, I somehow spent 24 hours with God. And I say, for those that are familiar with the Celestine Prophecy, which is pretty interesting. Have you read the Celestine Prophecy?
I have not yet. I have the book sitting on my shelf, like a million other books. I have a book problem. I love to collect books, and it takes me forever to read them.
Well, it's pretty funny, because just it in a nutshell it's pretty much what myrony is. It talks about being so in tune to the synchronicities that you are just in action of them. And that somehow raises your vibrational frequency to a point where you are able to witness things that others cannot see. So they say you can see heaven on earth. And that is basically what I felt happened to me. I started and the funny thing is I took pictures of all the things that were happening before they ended up happening. Like, I have like a whole timeline of pictures, because that's what my claircognizance, it's almost like my future self told my present past self, take these pictures because there's going to be for proof for later, but they ended up being almost puzzle pieces. So I ended up taking this one picture when this journey was first starting for me, that literally a prophecy of what was to come over the next 6 years. It was beyond amazing, whatever my future self was telling my present past self.
Wow.
But I literally spent 24 hours with God. So again, I'd love to get into deeper with that, but we only have so much time. So for anybody listening, go to Sense of Soul podcast and listen to my episode from February 22nd, because that's when I do a really, really deep dive. But that's what I'm being asked to do, is show who God is as love with an awesome sense of humor. God also wants to come back as fun. God's like, why does everybody think I'm this old fuddy-duddy? I was like, I'm the coolest thing ever. I will tell you, when I met God, God had the biggest ego, but also so full of love, he balanced himself out. Now, there is a female side to this too. There's a female energy, because God is everything, right? So, it's just looking at things through a different lens. However, I've been told we shouldn't let go of what's already out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. So I'm actually all of about the Bible. I don't believe everything in the Bible. I think, when they're talking about stoning people, God doesn't want people to stone each other. That's stupid. But when
totally stupid.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think maybe he had somebody channel that to see how would people really do that. And then he's like, oh, shoot, they really did. Okay, now let's bring Jesus and, have someone who's full of love, compassion, and understanding, and maybe we can shift things a little bit, because it was going down a really different direction. When we start looking at it as simple as that, in the weirdest way, it starts making sense. And, the one thing that I was also shown and told is that, what we think is reality, we have no idea what ultimately the bigger picture is. But in my experience, and I'm totally being guided to share what I'm supposed to share now, but in my experience, I literally was shown how soulmates work, how reincarnation works, even how money works. I remember there was one point I opened this book and it was the secrets to the universe, and I understood it all. And I was like, really? That's it? That's amazing. There was this beautiful, almost There was a whimsical, it was very comedic at times. It was just magical. And, you know, in addition to the miracles, let's bring the magic back of who God is. So, so I feel like I'm just a messenger of what myrony is. You know, it just so happens that my last name's Myronuk, just spelled differently. And, you know, so I'm just here as a messenger for God to show, from what I was shown, is that God just wants to be known as love with an awesome sense of humor. And anybody who understands myronies, there's usually humor behind it. But also, he wants to be like, hey, I'm a lot of fun. And I want you to talk with me. I want you to have a relationship with me. You know, it's not just anybody can have this relationship. It's your own personal relationship. So, you know, I encourage people to look maybe not at just the universe, but start connecting on the more personal side of who may have created the universe. So,
thank you for sharing all of that. I have so many questions, and I know that people can tune into your podcast to, you know, I'm sure people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I want to learn more about you, Alysha. I would love to dive in deeper after commercial about, you know, what is, like, how do we start looking for synchronicities? How do we start paying attention? Because I know for myself, it really wasn't a thing until I started. They really, like, all of a sudden it's in my awareness. So we'll jam about that after. Thank you, love.
Sounds wonderful.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at OMTimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, welcome back, love. I was on mute. Real life is what happens when you're on live radio. So I know that some of our listeners are just awakening. Perhaps they're just noticing synchronicities. And some might be like, oh, I'm not noticing yet. And some might be more advanced and notice them all the time. So can we speak to the very beginning? Like, how do we start noticing synchronicities? How do you work with people to notice that?
Well, I really encourage people to, if you start, when you really become in tune, you can actually notice it from just one thing will tug at your intuition. So what I encourage people, and actually, again, if you go to the first episode of my podcast, that's Myrony, and listen, I literally call it, it's titled Discover Myrony and Your Inner Superpower. So if you hear the progression of how this all happened from the perspective of Myrony, you may then start tapping into what you're seeing, because, you know, a lot of awareness is how we learn through others, because it's kind of like what I do with my clients is I show where their blind spots are, you know, that they're not able to see, because how can you find what you don't know what you're even trying to find? So I just encourage people to go and listen to that, because when you see how the progression happened, you'll be like, oh, okay, it can come in this way. It can come in this way. So for myself, I was literally inundated with it, because, you know, I was meant to bring Myrony to the world, which included, you know, going through this crazy marriage and divorce, because I had to go back to being Myronic. My married name was not Myronic. So, you know, that was why it was the biggest gift, you know, that I can help people who feel lost, you know, and when we start tapping into these synchronicities, these Myronies, literally your life will shift. I mean, miracles and magic will happen in your life and in others, which is what's so incredible. So how to tap into it is, some people see it all the time. That, you know, some people call them angel numbers. They catch it on the clock. They catch it. I mean, I encourage people to start looking at license plates. It's one of the funniest things. I believe
that's what I do all the time.
Yeah. If people saw my freaking photo stream, they'd be like, what is that? I think at some point I'm going to make like a coffee, you know, one of those coffee table books of all the crazy pictures I've taken that literally are messages, you know? And so you can...
Good, I'm not the only one that does that. I do that all the time too.
It's unbelievable what starts happening when you start paying attention. And so that's why I say you discover your own inner superpower. I call mine my spiritual spidey sense. So I encourage everybody, what do you want to call your spiritual superpower of, you know, this awareness? Because when you tap into it, it really does become a superpower. And so, yeah, you can do it with license plates. You can do it, you know, when you're seeing it on a clock, like, why do you keep seeing this number sequence? Now, number sequences are different for everyone, you know, and I'll actually tell you, I discovered later that the number sequences I would see all the time, they're actually connected to Bible verses. And again, I'm not a religious person. Yeah, that was super powerful.
So I haven't considered that. So that's an aha moment for me, because, yeah, they're not always like the repeating numbers. They may be, you know, what's one that I often see is like 488 or 448.
And so for whatever reason, if those are the numbers that speak to you, mine are always in 22, except for it's really funny because August 21st, 821 is what I now consider is when I challenge God. And August 22nd, 822 is when God showed up. And so my number sequences are always 822. 422 is my number of Myrony. That was what I shared earlier. 222 was this room number that I was in when I had this experience with God. But it's actually connected to the Bible verse Acts 2:22, which I find even funnier. I'm just going to share this really quickly, if that's okay.
Please.
But Acts 2:22 says, fellow Israelites, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did among you through him, as you yourselves know. So, and then really quickly, I'm being guided to share what 422 is, which is Mark, and says, for whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. So in addition to connecting to these Myronies and, you know, these, and I just encourage people, you know, synchronicity is a great word, but, you know, we move with the time. So isn't Myrony, it's much easier to spell. It's super fun. There's humor behind it. And it's literally the opposite of selfie, you know? So, but what that 422 is that in addition to my experience with God, I was then connected with somebody who started channeling the most beautiful, profound messages. And I believe these messages is what is in this biblical verse about what is meant to be brought out into the open. And maybe at the end, I'll be able to share a few of those. But, it's really what I encourage your listeners is just start paying attention to what captures your eye, what even captures your ear. If you've lost a loved one, they love to leave us signs. There's a beautiful book that will actually connect that. It's called Signs, the Secret Language of the Universe by psychic medium Rosalyn Jackson, which is basically myrony. But, that's a really beautiful book that allows us to start tapping into what our loved ones may leave behind. So you just want to start paying attention to what is capturing your senses and then trust what's happening on the inside. Are you receiving some sort of intuitive pull? And perfect example, say you see somebody a couple of times, but you haven't talked to them. Well, maybe you're meant to have a conversation with them. So it's really walking through the doors that open up. It's like when that door opens, walk through. In improv, they always say, yes and, because that's what continues the conversation. This continues the conversation of what's happening in life. And I like to call myrony spiritual breadcrumbs, because sometimes we get like a nice, big French baguette, and other times we get the smallest crumb. But I have discovered it's sometimes the smallest crumb that's going to have the greatest impact in your life. So I just ask everyone to start paying attention. And, another way is start sharing them. Because and that's what I'm encouraging with social media, start sharing your myronies, because someone around the world could see that, and then they'd be like, oh my goodness, the same thing happened to me, or a similar thing. And now we're actually being able to connect on such a deeper level. And I believe that's actually going to help raise the consciousness of awareness for the world when that connection happens.
Yes, absolutely. I would love for you to share some of those verses, and I think we'll do the meditation a little bit differently. So I'll guide people into tuning inward, and then I'll have you share the verses in just speaking more in a methodic way. Melodic, way. And then I'll come in with a light language so people can really tune in and receive and open up to whatever it is that they're meant to receive from those verses. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And I just want to preface, I am not the one that channeled these messages. To hear that is, there was someone I was divinely guided to meet. Because I am here to share about my experience that I had 6 years ago. But if I had shared, I had this experience with God and I also channeled these messages, people would not believe me. But how can I explain how I had this experience and then I was absolutely guided to meet this person? But I'm the one that knows what to do with the messages. So that is through the work that I do is when I'm talking to clients, I'm guided to share specific messages. So I will be absolutely guided to share the specific messages with what we're doing now. So I'm very excited for that.
Beautiful. And so usually my meditations are in the last 8 minutes long. Are we good for you reading through these messages within the 8 minutes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So what I'll do is I'll invite you, my listeners, to get settled in. You can sit up straight, get yourself comfy. You can lie down, whatever feels aligned for you to receive. And then when you're ready, just start to tune inward. So you may want to have a soft gaze or close your eyes. And then take a big breath in, follow it in. And finding a space inside in your internal world to just land. So maybe that may be your core, your solar plex, your heart space, your womb center, your roots, where it feels aligned for you. And allowing your hands to be in receiving, so turned upward towards the sky. And so we just call in our spirit guides to support us so that we may be open to receive whatever it is in terms of the messages, downloads that are going to support us for the highest truth and good. And so when you're ready, Alysha, please go ahead to share these beautiful messages.
Okay, wonderful. So these were actually channeled between 2016 and 17. And the first message that ever came out was on August 20th of 2016. And this one's kind of a little riddle, but it's one foot leads straight, the other is misguided. Both are necessary and will always be present. Make sure you follow the straight foot because it is the fastest path to your destiny. So I feel when we hear that, it's, listening to our heart and our soul, and that's our straight foot.
All right. So let's just put a pause there, because I feel like let's let the audience take this in.
Absolutely.
So you're visualizing this, just feeling into what resonates with you. You just light language that one. Morakia morokoratia nakia morokoratia. Moraninikia moroko mananakia. Breathing in. Just breathing out. Beautiful, letting that settle. Okay, Alysha, verse number 2.
Okay, this is a super powerful one because it's one we're feeling stuck in life. So it starts off as the status quo, not regressing and not progressing, is an extremely uncomfortable place to be. There is no progression if there's still a lesson to be learned. Pay attention to subtleties, the overlooked insights, and the ignored signs. Embrace what is right before your eyes. Lessons are processed at different rates depending on their significance to us. A spiritual quote-unquote timeout is a reprieve to review and digest the presented lessons. You cannot assimilate that which you have not fully integrated. A forward path requires willingness to take a timeout and discover the subtle lessons being taught.
So breathe that in, my loves. Wow, that's a powerful one. And it really does speak to me personally, so thank you.
Wonderful.
Morakia morokoratia, nekia morokoa, menenekia morokoratia. May we clear anything in the way of your path of stagnancy. Morokoratia, morokoratia. Open up to receive signs, myronies, morokoratia, morokia, morokoratia, the lessons, so that we can move forward, we can progress. Morakia, morokoratia, morokia. Beautiful. And is there one more, love, that you would like to share?
Yeah, let me share. Give me 1 second. I wasn't sure how many was going to, but I love this one. And, if anybody wants to hear more, these ones are just the short messages. But this one I love because it says, unfortunate occurrences and quote-unquote bad luck scenarios are often required to facilitate higher learning and accelerate a progressive life cycle that is not evolving. Positive life-changing events can first manifest as personal disasters, but are actually the necessary precursor to understanding and obtaining the awaiting miracle.
Wow, breathing this one in. Morakia, morokoratia, menenekia, porakia, piridikia. May miracles come forth as you realign, rearrange, and recalibrate. Morokoratia, morokoratia. Breathing in. And out. Beautiful. So just hang out with your experience, hang out with the sensations, just noticing what's coming forth for you. And I encourage you to journal whatever came forward for you. Beautiful. Alysha, how can people get connected with you? How can they learn more? We've talked about your podcast, but please repeat that again. And then if anyone's interested in working with you, please let us know where they can go.
Okay, thank you. So my podcast is That's My Irony Podcast. And you can totally hear, because most of the time my guests kind of show up and then I basically am interviewing them. So it's kind of fun. You actually will see a whole progression of how this has developed. But social media, very easy to find me with That's My Irony, and also just Alysha Myronuk. I really am the only one with that name out there. And so also my website is that'smyrony.com, and under that is my+irony mentoring. So I do a little mini intuitive soul session, but for if one of your listeners mentions, That's My Irony, they heard about this on your show. I apologize.
Yes.
I would love to give them an hour intuitive soul session as a gift.
Oh,
so they just have to say that they heard that, and I'll be able to give them an hour. Yeah.
Thank you. So let them know you heard it. Let Alysha know you heard it through this show. That's amazing.
Yes, I would love for that. And basically what I do with these intuitive soul sessions is I share these beautiful, profound messages that I'm guided to share, for that person at the time.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story and your gifts and these beautiful messages, Alysha. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Go and connect with Alysha. Get those messages. Receive the downloads. Beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you again.